you know, the original saga was about the father, the children, and the grandchildren. And I mean, that's not a secret to anybody. It's even in the novels.
Howdy and welcome back to another highlight and review of the new Jedi Order. Today we're diving into the 5th book in the series, which is Agents of Chaos Part 2, Jedi Eclipse, and that's also the second half of James Luceno's duology. Before we jump in, quick reminder, if you want the full history of the NGO, I've got a video covering that already, and I've also got videos breaking down every book up to this point. So if you've fallen behind, there's no shame, just click on the playlist and get caught up. Also, don't be a rumbleist. Go check out the pure unadulterated streams over on Bane of the Shills, the true gatekeepers of the Holocron, and make sure to follow him and support him over there as well. And also, by doing that, you're supporting the new Jedi Order Renaissance. Because if we don't support it, who will? Certainly not the Disney timeline or the Fence Riders and Shills that are still following that stuff. So, depending on when this video drops, I will either be involved with or will already have been involved with the deep dive of the second half of this book, and that's with Star Wars Marvel purist and OG Star Wars, whom you should already be subscribed to. Unless, of course, she still triggers you because she's the EU boogeyman. You can also check out the NGO documentary from HoloNet. And speaking of documentaries, apparently all the Troy Dennin haters are treating his next video like the sacred Jedi holocron, proving the existence of a so-called Denningverse that ruined the expanded universe. Now, let's be honest, there is no Denningverse. People act like Troy Dennin sat in a dark room and maniacally laughed to himself while rewriting the EU. Meanwhile, in reality, Lucas licensing approved everything. The guy couldn't sneeze without licensing, making sure it was canon. It's ridiculous. And this is the kind of fake news that EU fans are constantly having to debunk, because some people didn't like the direction a story took. So they basically throw all logic out the window faster than Anakin Skywalker turned to the dark side. Well, unless you read the novelization by Matthew Stover, line edited by George Lucas, which goes into a lot more description on that, so maybe not a good example. They throw logic out the window faster than Star Wars Theory changes his opinion on every single Disney Plus Star Wars show that he's watched. They throw out logic quicker than Lucky Kennedy gets triggered by evidence that proves the EU was canon. Or they throw it out quicker than Daimyo writes idiotic comments on the Knights of Melvin's live chats. Or they throw it out quicker than Dave Filoni brought Ahsoka back right after the Disney acquisition, even though George Lucas wanted her to die. Whichever option you choose, the New Jedi Order is amazing, but it's not the conclusion to the saga. It gets dark, and it's not just a phase. Let's get into my highlights and review of the novel. There's like 28 chapters. Oh man, 28 chapters. There's already like 19 books, man. How am I going to get through this?
I don't know. There's just so many of them. It's ugh. It's hard to keep track of like what era they're in too, whether you're in Legacy or NJO, and even what people are talking about are so impossible to pin down because it's over 20 books. It's not like 6 movies. It's like 20 books.
Apologies for the bad lighting in here, folks. As you can see, Scran's moving country, so all my stuff's getting either sold or boxed up. And fun times. We start out on the planet Gendine. It's under attack and being evacuated. Leia is unrecognised in her overalls with the emblem Cellcore, which stands for Senate-elect Committee for Refugees. Gendine was seen as a good transit planet for refugees from Ethor, Abrosky and Ord Mantell, among others. There was no reason for the Vong to attack other than to continue causing confusion. The Vong took delight in following these displaced species. And the Vong now have this fire-breathing creature. It breathes liquid fire. It's really cool. Leia is being accused of discriminating against former Imperial loyalists for evacuation, as if she can pick them out in a frantic crowd. And then her cheek is injured by shrapnel. The man spreading the rumour is revealed to be Yuzang Vong when Leia touches his face and the Ugliff masker drips from him like liquid flesh into a puddle at his feet. And then C-3PO gets his chest dented by a thud bug. Worf Skitter arrives on a transport. He's still full of himself but has matured quite a lot since the last time I've seen him. Which I think was Romamul. And then Leia manages to cram 4 Rin into the final evacuation shuttle. An infant called Melisma is told to let Droma know where they are. It's been about a month since Han left with Droma and he's yet to contact Leia personally. She was still surprised at the direction his grief had taken him. We learn that the Rin that Leia was in contact with are related to Droma. Leia then realises that Worf Skitter hadn't boarded the shuttle. News travels slow as some thought the Vong would show them mercy if they removed their uniforms. They simply reserved quicker deaths for those with a fighting spirit. They were also rumoured to send shiploads of captives as a sacrifice into the hearts of stars. Skitter observes more terrifying Vong creatures that could create a living parameter around the Imperial Embassy. He had more concern with winning the war than understanding the Vong. Danny Kui had informed him of Miko Reglius's torture and death. Luke Skywalker taught that vengeance was a path to the dark side, but some including Kip Duron, took issue with some of his teachings, believing sometimes darkness had to be fought with darkness. Han had made adjustments to the Falcon, even painting it matte black. I thought that was pretty funny because R.A. Salvatore got told that he couldn't do anything with the Falcon, and then Lucino just paints it black. But it's a pretty cool visual as well, I think. Many Rin had been enslaved by the Hutts. Droma makes Han think about how he's treating his loved ones. He says we live for love. The Rin were not magical. They could read the future of beings through being very perceptive. Han said love is his problem pretty much. Getting too close to people is the problem. Droma insinuates that Han's mistake was befriending Chewbacca in the first place. Han claims he's ready for anything fate throws at him. He won't fail again. The New Republic War Room on Coruscant discusses the war. The Vong have gone out of their way to avoid the Hapes. The Hapan Queen's homeworld is Dathomir, so that's Tenennial Joe from The Courtship of Princess Leia. The New Republic's basically hoping to lure the Vong to Corellia using Centerpoint Station, a weapon of unparalleled power. So that's from the Bantam era. Oh, super weapons, blah blah blah, it's literally cringe, whatever. It's cool, you'll see why it's cool. They are keeping Corellia and the Council in the dark with their plan, using Corellia as bait. Malak Kar and Nominor meet with Borga the Hutt to negotiate their partnership. Nominor reveals that Hutts are said to be hermaphrodites. Jabba's uncle said Jabba would have fed them both to his rancor. We're introduced to Gardula the Younger, who is the advisor of Borga and the son of Gardula the Hutt, who previously owned Shmi and Anakin Skywalker. Kin Kal, commander of the Vong vessel called Kresh, has captured refugees from Gindine, including Worf Skitter. He had a creature on his head in a nest, and also his cape was alive. Roa and Vosco are on board as well. That's Han's friends that got captured in the last book. On Yavin 4, Luke heard animals including crystal snakes, as seen in the Young Jedi Knights series, which OG Star Wars has been covering on her channel on the weekends. I like to try and catch those when I can. It's at like 2 in the morning for me, so it's pretty difficult. He ponders nature and the dark side, the origins of the Vong, and if the Force exists in their universe. Talon Card and Luke have a philosophical conversation about how the Force works through different Jedi. Luke's still skeptical of Vergier's cure for Mara. And then Talon said if he could cloak Murker like the Jedi cloak Yavin, then Thrawn would never have chased him off planet. And that was in Dark Force Rising, I believe. Or it was the second book in the trilogy. Jason and Anakin argue in the temple about Anakin's mission to Centerpoint. They agree to go together. And then Talon realised that the Hutt's deal with the Vong includes distribution of spice. He identified the systems where spice runs have halted, signifying that the Vong plan to invade them. Many have lost faith in the Jedi. Some actually think if Palpatine was around, he'd know how to deal with the Vong. A few of the Jedi join Talon's plan to approach the Hutts disguised as smugglers. On the planet Ruin, the Rin are still discriminated against. Kin Cal said Yamosk become oxygen breathers when they grow into war coordinators. The Yamosk is a sensitive creature trained to treat certain Dovin Basil as its children. In battle, it perceives its children as threatened and coordinates to keep them out of danger. So the nicer you are to a Yamosk, the better the ship performs. They also build rapport with their ship commanders, and this one takes a liking to Skitter. Leia arrives on Hapes to ask for support and informs them of the Vong invasion. There's more references to courtship. Among those in the room is Isildur, his wife Tenennial Jo, and their Jedi daughter Tenel Ka. That even described her missing arm, which she lost in a duel with Jason from the Young Jedi Knights books. Which I actually found out on a OG Star Wars stream, which was cool. Blew my mind that she was related to Tenennial Jo. But anyway, moving on. Isildur's mother still grudges Leia for choosing Han Solo over her son. And then there's a character called Fane who tried to turn the Hapes against Leia and the Jedi. We get mention of Isildur's former bodyguard, Captain Astara, who I remember was in love with him. There's a really cool space battle between Han, Droma, and some coral skippers. Vicky Sesh thinks it would be more profitable if the Vong knew about Centrepoint Station on Corellia, so plans to inform the Hutts. She says something along the lines of, why would I want to be the one firing a weapon when I can be the one pointing at who it's aimed at? Talon Karrde, Kip Duron, and Ganner Rysode meet with a Twi'lek, some Rodians, and someone called Bombassa on Ryloth to discuss spice smuggling. Bombassa knows what Karrde is up to, but promises not to reveal to the Hutts in order to prove whose side he's really on. And then Rhonda the Hutt suggests that Kin Cal relieve the Rin from their duties so they can determine if the rumours of their abilities are true. Thane and Isildur battle. Tata Chum tells Leia that Isildur's marriage to Tenennial Jo is full of difficulties and she may return to Dathomir. Isildur is dueling not only to show his initiative, but also for Leia's honour and to prove his ongoing affections for her. And this is why Tata Chum will give Leia her support in the war. The Rin on the planet Ruin make a deal to forge papers to get off world, because apparently other worlds are wanting to utilise refugees and their specific talents. Or so they're told. Because there's a group of smugglers recycling refugees, they're basically bringing them to worlds that will be invaded by the Vong. And then it's like a cycle, right? Skitter has been communicating with the Yamosk. He will make it believe Rhonda will betray Kin Cal, and the Rin will convince Rhonda that he will be sacrificed by the Vong. So once Skitter has the Yamosk's trust, it will tell him where they are going, and he can find a way to warn the Jedi. Roa wasn't surprised at the revelation Skitter was a Jedi and that he was deliberately brought on board. Boga the Hutt meets with Vicky Sesh. Apparently the Hutts are not aware of the Vong's future plans but simply want to avoid war. Then Sesh tells Boga to inform Gorga the Hutt their plans for Corellia to right an earlier wrong. So she's kind of playing both sides. Like, now I understand why OG Star Wars can't stand Vicky Sesh. This book did it for me. The Yamosk are not grown but are spawned, passing knowledge to the next. And this one identifies Skitter as a Jedi. He is to be gifted to War Master Savange La, who will one day arrive to govern Coruscant. And that's cool because it's something I'm already aware of, having not read it yet. But even when we covered Shatterpoint on the channel on live streams, Mace Windu has a vision of a Vong invasion on Coruscant, so pretty sick. Continuity. The EU had good continuity. We get some Vong lore about like a ceremony or ritual. There's these Vong officers getting implanted horns in their shoulders while warriors were being promoted. Nominor was advised that they would demote him if possible. He basically managed to distance himself from Shadal Shai and Degara, but would be held responsible for the deaths of Elon and Vergir. Then we get some more Showalter, the victim of many memes among our community. He hated that Elon had fooled him. He wondered what would have happened if Han Solo hadn't come along, and also what had become of Vergir, which I'm still wondering about. We then hear from Savange La through a Villip that he's pleased with the progress. Everything the Vong are kind of doing throughout this book, it's really just to confuse the New Republic as to what their actual goal is. Borsk Felia, as always, he's not convinced. A lot of this information came from Showalter, whose standing is questionable, and he received it from Talon Card, who fraternizes with the Jedi. The New Republic is filled in on everything, and we find out that the Solo children have arrived at Center Point. We also get mention of the Gun of Command. I know that the DA, he's a big Courtship of Princess Leia fan. He loves it as much as he loves going to Japan for fake Star Wars Celebration. That's the weapon that Han uses to stun Leia and take her to Dathomir to fall in love with him again. So there you go. Then we get callbacks to moments from the movies between Han and Leia, which was really neat. Leia actually has a vision of brutal warfare and urged a soldier to undo his vote so that the Hapes will not be involved in the war. Supreme Commander Choka, I was getting confused with Chokka from the Dark Tide duology. This is Choka, he's a member of the Yuzang Vong. He discovers that the Kresh is in possession of a Jedi Knight. There's reference to the Darksaber. King Cal was planning to use Skitter to train the Yamosk in the ways of the Force. Rhonda the Hutt believed the Rin that the Vong would betray him and asked Skitter for help. A service droid called Baffle offers to help free Droma. The droids want Han to disable controls that can remotely shut them down and escape imprisonment. And then it turns out that Salish Ag, who basically runs a lot of the stuff on Ruin, turns out that he isn't phasing out droids in favour of living workers. They are indulging in anti-droid sentiment to appease the Vong and to offer droids as a gift upon their arrival. Kip's dozen Avengers are now called the Dozen. On Corellia, Jason and Anakin question the riots and become aware that they are rearming Centerpoint not as a defence but as a snare for the Vong. 8 years ago, Anakin was responsible for deactivating Centerpoint. They believe that he is the only one who can help it function. And then they're warned that they might not like what they find at Centerpoint. We get a really epic description of Centerpoint Station in Chapter 23. And then Jason and Anakin meet with Han's first cousin, Thraken Sal Solo, and basically Anakin is able to rearm the station. Han and Droma basically get flooded out at Ruin. Han manages to climb into a crashed speeder that was surfing towards him, and he pulls Droma in as well. They go over a waterfall and are thrown out. They climb onto a garbage container which turns out to be a scout collector that imprisons living specimens. Droma tells Han that he owes him a rescue and to pay up now. Then they're retrieved by Baffle the droid. King Cal tries to get Skitter to show off his force abilities. The Kresh falls under attack from Kip and Ganner, etc. And King Cal realised that the Hutts divulged their location. They retreat to the planet Fondor, which is also where Han and Droma are going. The Rin were also deceived and being taken to a shipbuilding platform above the planet. Han and Droma are tracking the ship of refugees, the Trevi. When the Vong begin their attack on Fondor, they are assisted by Kip's Dozen. Looking at the battle on Fondor via holo display, Leia saw her visions partly realised. They then realised that they were deceived into thinking the Vong would strike Corellia. Aboard the Kresh, Kip and Ganner take on Vong back to back with their lightsabers, and then 2 of Kip's Dozen are killed as well. And then, having the Vong's coordinates, Anakin is urged to activate Centerpoint, and Jason, as always, is really against the risk. Kip finds Worf Skitter, who claims King Cal has broken him. He said he's dying and they don't have time to save him. He said he's prepared to die, but asks that Kip find Cal and Rhonda. They save Rhonda, who promises to repay the debt in the name of Skitter. Ganner kills the Yamosk. Cal said they will all die now. Han agrees to take the refugees, including Rhonda. Anakin asks Jason what to do. He said, "You can't do this, you're a Jedi." Thraken then pulls him from the console and prepares to fire it himself. Leia reaches out for them in the Force and feels serenity. As the Hapes are about to open fire on the Vong, a beam of starfire illuminated from space about 1,000 kilometers wide. It consumes every ship in its path, atomizing them in the blink of an eye. It devastated the Hapan fleet, then pulverized the Vong warship and coral skippers, so they identify this as Centerpoint Station. The Falcon is pushed far from its position, and they believe that the Vong have coaxed the Fondor sun into a going supernova, basically, and half the Vong armada is gone. The Vong think that the New Republic wiped out some of their own forces to defeat them, and Cal dies in the crash. And they're confused because they know that the New Republic don't operate that way. So either way, now the Vong have a score to settle with the Hutts. Vicky Sesh is questioned about the events that led to the sneak attack on Fondor. Back on Coruscant, Jason watches the HoloNet. Thraken Sal Solo is being credited with turning the tide of the war at Fondor with the hyperspace repulsor beam. Anakin said that he could have fired Centerpoint without hitting the Hapans. Jason doesn't know where to draw the line in war, but wants to find a peaceful solution. Skitter's death has made a larger gulf between Kip's faction of the Jedi and Luke's. A man called Pedrick Cuff contacts Vicky Sesh. He wants to discuss the future disposition of Coruscant. She talks about his suit, and I think it's referencing like a Eclipse masker. So obviously I think this is some sort of Vong representative she's talking to. She said she's always been more interested in business than politics. And that's where the book ends. So that's Jedi Eclipse. Lucino's writing's still excellent, it's amazing, and he effortlessly weaves in expanded universe lore, as always. There's political nuance, there's brand new Yuuzhan Vong biotech, which feels like real world building. Every scene with the Vong, to be honest, is amazing. There's all these cool creatures and rituals, it's fantastic. But compared to Hero's Trial, at least I feel that this book loses that emotional core. The first book had that raw, intimate, character-driven story about Han Solo processing his grief about his best friend's death. Spoiler alert, well, if you're the fifth book in, you already know about that. It was powerful, it hit, and it really mattered. People like to say that it was stupid or whatever. The fact that we're the fifth book in and this thing's still getting trudged up throughout the story, it was a lot of respect paid to Chewbacca and his sacrifice. We've talked about that plenty of times, there's no need to keep going over it. This book is more like a giant galactic chess match. It's interesting, it's ambitious, but it doesn't land with some of the same emotional punch. At least I feel that way. The pacing sometimes wanders, and well, certain plot lines I just felt myself wanting to get through to get to the other stuff. But that's a personal thing, obviously. Especially with like the political scenes. Which is weird because everyone's always like, oh, Andor's amazing, it's so political, it's like a political thriller, blah blah blah. But then they'll slag The Phantom Menace for having too much talking in politics. It's weird. I just feel like in this story those scenes don't carry the same weight. It's still a good book, and to be honest, Lucino's mid-tier stuff is still excellent, really high quality, and every book in the New Jedi Order is really high quality. For me, this book is at the bottom of the list in the NGO, and it's not because it's bad, it's because the series has already set the bar unbelievably high. So it's just not as strong as the rest, basically. Still, the stage is set for what's coming next in the NGO. It's massive, and I'm excited to continue the journey. I hope you enjoyed my highlights and review, and I will catch you on the next one, which is You okay? Yeah? That? You want that?
I need it.
You need me to carry it through? It's kind of heavy. We were interrupted mid-sentence, so there's for all the weirdos on Discord that think that Mrs. Scran's treated badly. She couldn't care less if I'm in here talking Star Wars, so... Hey, Scran's a loser. There you go, apparently. Right, yeah, so the next book is Balance Point, written by Kathy Tyre, so that'll be good. Awesome. So, long live the expanded universe, and lang may your lungs reek.